So, hi guys, as you can see, Dave from Hawk Wargames has invaded the studio.
Yeah.
And it's time for a look at an update for what's happening with Dropfleet Commander. So the Kickstarter went absolutely bonkers.
It did. It went insane. It really was. It was a crazy month. That was. I mean, it was brilliant, and it did a lot better than we thought it was going to do.
And you got very little sleep.
Yeah, very little sleep. But it was a good very little sleep, and you know, it was fantastic for all of us and great for the game, and it meant we could do a lot.
Everybody, as you can see on the table, we have a raid before us. The forces of Dropfleet. They look absolutely gorgeous. We will be showing them off through this video. But Dave, what you're wanting to talk about is what has actually came out from the Kickstarter. So where do you want to start?
Well, we've got, first off, I've mentioned that we're still running the Pledge Manager at the moment, and we do still accept late backers up until the 21st of March, which is where it closes, and you can't be a late backer after that.
Right. So basically, if you miss this, you didn't exactly miss this, but you might be about to miss this. So if you're on the fence, now's the time. It's make or break. Are you going to jump in on it?
As late backers don't get the freebies that the people did get who backed the Kickstarter when it was running, but if you want to pick up specific Kickstarter exclusives, that's quite a good way of doing it, because there's a lot of things we're going to be showing off here that you won't be able to buy again after that.
We have some images here, so do you want to actually pick some of the stuff out and show it off? So
yeah,
go ahead, press the button, and I'll magically make it appear on screen.
Well, we'll start off with...
Oh, hello.
These are... This is one of the PHR cruisers, but two of the exclusives are 2-ups of 2 of the models.
So I'm guessing, whereas... Okay, so this is the one that we're working from. So this is the in-game scale.
Yeah, this is a 1-to-1.
So this is quite hefty.
Yeah, it's a big model.
I'm guessing the 2-up, is it twice as big?
Yep, it's twice as big, but obviously many more times that in volume. So when we've just sent the masters off for casting at the moment, so we don't have them with us.
Right.
But I was kind of surprised when we actually got them back. It was like, whoa, it's actually quite big.
This happens a lot with you. You go, I can make a big ship. Let's do this. Let's do this. Then the Avenger happened at Salute.
Oh yeah, and then it will be back
huge,
incidentally for this Salute. But yeah, the 2-ups are really nice desk pieces. You know, they're really good and solid big pieces for the money as well. You know, that you get a lot of model.
Yeah, well, I mean, like if you're a painter and you really want to go to town on it, this is one of the ones for you. I know John has picked himself up. I think it's the Beijing for the UCM.
Yeah, the big one. We'll get that out as well in a minute.
Yeah, but I mean, like overall, I mean, like, just looking at this, seeing all of the fantastic details in here, because you've got all your little gun batteries. Now, I'm assuming the PHR for actual play style is going to be broadside.
Yeah, they're a broadsidey faction, the PHR. You've got to have that in a naval game, and PHR aren't really any slower in a straight line than the UCM.
Yeah.
But they need to think much more carefully about facing. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, what I'm expecting to see from some players is just, damn the torpedoes, straight ahead, between everybody, I've got you on both sides, let's rock and roll.
Yeah, it's harder than you think, actually, to pull that off. I mean, that's something that came out with playtesting with PHR, is they actually have, strictly speaking, twice the firepower for more or less the same points.
Yeah, but it's getting into position.
Yeah, to actually be able to bring that to bear is something that's quite difficult to do, and they struggle in attack initially, because they don't have much in the way of forward-facing weapons. Yeah. But then they do have the only cruiser-sized ship in the game with a torpedo, so be scared of that. That's the Achilles, which has got that.
If we have learned anything, torpedoes in this game hurt.
Yeah, torpedoes are really, really nasty. I mean, you won't see them used very much, but when you do get a torpedo, you know, be scared. Yeah. And talking about being scared, we'll bring out the Beijing as well. Oh. The Beijing, this is the in-game Beijing.
So the in-game, whoa, it's okay.
It's big. So if we
this on camera.
If we get a standard cruiser, it's actually a fleet carrier, but it's a cruiser-sized ship. That gives you an idea.
I'll put this here, and I think so
that's how big battleships are in the actual game.
Yeah. So
and
is
obviously
this the
the 2-up
battleship at the minute, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's the only one that's been sculpted so far. Yeah. The 2-up is well, it's twice that long and 4 times the bulk. You know, it's a big model. Yeah, it really is.
Whenever you actually get a look at this thing, you know, really close up, you can see, Dave, I know you love going nuts on the details, mate, but bloody hell.
I went to town with all these ships, to be honest, but the UCM battleship in particular was really complex sculpt. Yeah. I mean, it's the battleships, it's worth mentioning as well that the actual in-game battleships will be the first straight-to-retail release. So you can't get battleships on the Kickstarter. The only way you can get a battleshipy thing is to get the 2-up Beijing, which is a beautiful desk piece. Not really that gameable because it's huge. Strictly speaking,
if I know Master Lions, he'll plonk it down for a game.
I mean, you can use it actually because all ships are point sources, so it doesn't actually matter how big the model is physically, really. But it's a bit ungainly.
An intimidation piece at that point.
It's a big model, but it'll come on a beautiful laser cut custom flight stand for it.
Nice.
I'm actually signing all the ones for the Beijing.
Nice.
Not for the Ajax, the PHR one. That's a little cheaper and a bit smaller. But for the Beijings, I'm going to sign the bases on all of those.
Nice.
And again, it'll be the last time you could get those.
Yeah.
So that's worth checking those out.
This is an extra you can pick up.
Yeah. Yeah,
okay,
this is on the Pledge Manager,
There's one thing I'm noticing about this little guy here. Now, this is a strike carrier, yeah?
Yeah, it's a fleet carrier.
Fleet carrier, right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see inside here, but in the actual hangar bay, the ships are actually laid out to scale. This is nuts.
Yeah, you can actually see the fighters and the bombers in there. In Dropfleet, fluff-wise, the fighters and the bombers are quite big aircraft. They've got a crew of multiple people. Like a bomber's got a crew of like 10.
Yeah.
So they're not small little like atmospheric sized, but they are still pretty titchy. But you can see them in the flight deck.
Yeah, that's
for this.
That's that crazy level of detail that we love from the guys at Hawk Wargames. It's the one thing that's always stood out for me. I remember whenever you were sculpting some of the old UCM troopers, you actually sculpted at 10 mil boot bases.
Yeah.
I looked at it whenever I got my hands on it, which is like, Dave.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, my approach has always been, if you can do it, if it's possible, then you should with detail, because once you've got it, once you've got the master, you've got the master. So as long as your casting's good, you can replicate that, and everyone gets that detail as long as the effort's been put in at the start.
Yeah,
that means I don't get a great deal of sleep or free time, but the end result I'm happy with, and
From day one, you have been the mad scientist of wargaming, because I remember that first year at Salute. We were running the Hobby Lab that year, and just up from us there was this big beautiful black stand, and it was just us looking up at it all day going, oh, what's that? I'll maybe take a look at that at lunchtime. Wander up, see Drop Zone Commander. I look at it, and I think I spoke to you that day and went, can I buy this? No, it's not for sale yet.
Yeah, that very first Salute, it's a long time ago. See pictures of me back. I look a lot. I was like 3 years younger, but I look 10 years younger.
It was just, it had that instant factor of, I must own this, which is what I think you've captured again with Dropfleet. The other thing for the game is, Drop Zone Commander has a very, very modern warfare feel. I'm hoping we're going to capture that again in Dropfleet. Yeah,
there's a lot of nods to realism in it. Not too many, because any spaceship game becomes cumbersome when you start to bring in too much in the way of momentum and things.
It's getting that overall sense of what the game is trying to do. Yeah. So for this game, we all know it's about getting your troops on the ground, getting into those key strategic locations. You're fighting for planets.
Yeah, but it's orbital combat. Every game is an orbital combat game. It's not deep space fleet. It's very different from that.
Yeah, but that's what really gives it a flavor for me, is I feel like I'm playing what would be a true military scenario.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then obviously you could link that to Drop Zone, because there's always an abstraction there, because a little strike carrier like one of these, little tiddlies, which is a small ship.
You call it a tiddly.
Yeah, this thing it's not a large ship, but it's not a tiny model. It's about 40 mil long, I think.
This is the smallest of the UCM fleet. This is the one that you did in Drop Zone Commander.
In 10 mil scale, yeah. This is 3 meters long in 10 mil scale.
Exactly.
So that holds 100 Condor dropships and like 8 Albatross heavies, and
so you can imagine that this alone would be going and taking out a fair chunk of a continent.
Yeah. So once you extrapolate down, there's always going to be like your game of Drop Zone will represent the crucial element of a larger battle, rather.
Exactly. I mean, it's the temptation I have is to actually jump from Drop Fleet to Drop Zone.
Yeah.
So play a game of Drop Fleet, figure out, okay, here's where we're going to have issues. Here are the scenarios because of how that worked out. Yeah. And off we go.
Exactly. You can do the two kind of feed off each other very neatly like that.
Which really, really is fun.
Yeah. Oh, the next Kickstarter stuff. Should we get on to
the
big bad boys? I always want to show off toys. So the next bit is the battlecruisers.
Yes.
There's a range of battlecruisers.
So this first one, who is it for?
This is the SHARRI. This is the Adamant battlecruiser.
It's a very, very beautiful cruiser. I mean, like, it's the one thing you've really captured with the SHARRI is not so much that they have so much going on. It's the lack of what's going on here and there. Those voids in between give them a really interesting shape.
I really wanted to.
Hang on. This is the Mini?
This is the Mini, yeah. So this is a thing about plastic, because normally, you know, I'm designing for resin, and resin gives you a lot of freedom as a designer. There's a lot you can do with resin that you can't do with plastic.
Yeah.
But there are several things that you can do with plastic that you can't do with resin.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do this in resin, you know, but it would be difficult to cast. It would have a tendency to warp because there's a lot of open space and a lot of free floating elements, whereas in hard plastic it won't do that. So it's a much more gameable miniature in plastic than it is in resin.
I do have one question, just for those out there. What weapons is this loaded out with?
Okay, so this has got 2 particle lancers, which are, this is, of all the battle cruisers, this is the pointiest one. So this is all forward, really. This is where, so particle lancers, they don't do maximum damage, but they do reliable damage.
Okay.
So they basically ignore armor nearly all the time. You know, they're basically just going to punch through, and they're going to do a certain number of damage. You can rely on the damage that they're going to deal. Excellent. They're front narrow facing, so you've got to be pointing directly at the target.
So be clever with your movement.
And then you've got 2 disintegrators at the bottom, which are more standard gun batteries, so they're front arc.
Yeah.
Which are, that's your standard SHARRI, you know, normal guns. But it's essentially got double the firepower of a cruiser. Yeah. Not double the hull points, though. So all the battle cruisers in game, they're like real battle cruisers from World War II. So they pack battleship level firepower almost.
But they're not going to take that damage.
Yeah, they're not going to take the same.
There for.
Yeah, and they don't have as much point defense, and they don't have quite the same hull points. Yeah. So you know they're a bit brittle, but they're great for hunting down ships weaker than themselves ultimately, because they're just going to blat something. And they also, on the Kickstarter, because the battleships aren't available yet, they serve as your flagship. When you first get your miniatures, you know, and you won't, you know, a lot of people won't be dealing with a full tournament size fleet anyway from starter set, so they make a nice flagship for a smaller fleet.
So they give you that nice big heavy punch, but it's not going to be a god of the battlefield.
Yeah, then the battleships are gods of the battlefield. The battleships are really potent. You know, they're just really hard to kill.
Yeah. Now the one thing for the SHARRI, just while I'm here, if I remember correctly, their deployment tactics are very different to everybody else.
Yeah, they are.
Same as they are in Drop Zone Commander.
We dig out 2 models for the SHARRI, actually.
So we have this.
So
and then we have
all the other factions. Actually, if I bring in quickly as well the UCM pair. So all the other factions, just to give this some context. Yeah. So they have strike carriers, which are these ones here. Yeah. So and then they've got motherships.
So strike carriers drop your elite troops.
Yeah, troop ships. Troop ships, actually. Mothership's a legacy term for them. They're actually troop ships.
I see.
We'll get on to what is a mothership in a minute.
Okay.
So troop ships carry bulk landers. And a bulk lander, if you think about it, is basically a big fat meat crate. Yeah. So it's a very efficient way of getting a lot of troops down in one go. Yeah. But because it's a big fat meat crate, it's quite vulnerable to ground fire. You know, it's not the thing you send in the first wave. Yeah, when there's enemy on,
your support units are going to be dropped down.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about a real war, you know, think of D-Day, and your strike carriers, the small ones, they carry dropships. That's your landing boats. Yeah, that's your first wave attack against a hardened target. So dropships are really good at avoiding ground fire. Yeah. So if there's enemy emplacements down there, generally you can get troops on the ground with dropships. And also dropships can drop tanks. I see. So they're quite tough units. They're good at killing other units that are already down there. Strike carriers are faster. They can go atmospheric as well, so they can duck under the atmosphere and very hard to kill. Think of it as a submerged submarine. Yeah. Well, I mean, like that atmospheric rule is a very, very key factor in this, which I think is really what gives the game its flavor. Very important is the orbital layers. But then the big fatty, the troop ship, that drops, say, 4 infantry tokens, where the strike carrier can only drop 1 every turn. And it does it from orbit as well, whereas the strike carrier has to deploy from atmosphere, because dropships can't operate in the void. They have to be dropped in atmosphere. So all 3 other factions, the PHR and the Scourge and the UCM, work basically on that principle. They have a troop ship and a strike carrier. Yeah. More or less the same kind of behaviour, really. So we have a scalpel and a hammer. Yeah, a scalpel and a hammer. You know, they serve different roles.
Don't worry, it's not broken.
It's magnetized. It's magnetized on. It's fine.
And I didn't drop it, so I'm okay.
The troop ships are good if there's no occupying forces, and actually infantry are better than tanks when it comes to surviving orbital bombardment, because infantry can hide inside buildings, whereas tanks are stuck in the open. So you know, if you want to take and hold an unoccupied city, then you want bulk landers. Whereas if you want to take somewhere that's occupied already, then strike carriers are better. Shaltari, they don't have that. They have motherships, which is this Emerald class mothership here, and void gates, which is this little thing here. So the way these work, they don't have strike carriers. The void gate is what does the actual deploying.
Okay, so our little guy does the deploying.
You deploy your tokens from your void gates, and they have to be in atmosphere to do it. But the actual troops themselves are physically on board the mothership.
Right.
So you've got to have multiple void gates. So this can drop 3 tokens per turn.
Okay, so
via void gates, and each void gate can only drop 1 token each.
Right. So it means that for Shaltari, I have to be guarding my mothership.
You do, yeah. Look after
too gung-ho with it.
You can also chain them as well. So at the moment, the void gate needs to be within 18 inches of the mothership to deploy. But you could have 2 void gates, 18 inches away from each other. So as long as you're in the web of them, you can go via other ones.
So you really can't hang this back and just have points along your supply chain.
Because your void gates are really, really cheap. They're like 10 points, really, really cheap.
Yeah, that's going to make for some interesting tactics.
Also, you'll have more of these than you ever need because you get one of them on every single Shaltari cruiser sprue. So you're going to have more than you'll take in a game. By the time you built a fleet, you're going to have like 8 of them, and you probably won't take 8. You probably take like 6.
Yeah,
maybe.
But it's nice to have them sit and spare.
Yeah, you're going to get spares. Like especially actually with the Shaltari battlecruiser, is worth mentioning. It uses 2 plastic sprues, whereas all the others only use 1. So you get 2 void gates with it too, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, no, see, I like that idea because you've carried that over again from Drop Zone Commander. Because I remember your 2-player starter set, you had an extra Scourge transport in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, you get an extra APC because they're free sprues, and it's kind of like that. Yeah, just the way the multiples work out.
It's nice to have those extras in there because if I lose something, if I break something, I've got a backup.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing you can do as well with the void gates that all the other factions can't do is you can then move the stuff that's already on the ground between void gates. So, and that doesn't have any limits with how much you can move, because the idea is it needs a lot less power because they're already down there on the ground.
Right.
So if you've got, say, 6 tokens in one city and you need them desperately somewhere else, you can just go and just redeploy them, which is really neat.
So that's actually really clever because it's allowing you to reinforce where you're having issues, even though your actual forces that's getting them there are that little bit more fragile, I'm guessing.
Well, they're just as tough as everybody else's, but you've got less of them. So when I mentioned that a troop ship could do 4 infantry tokens, it can drop 4 infantry tokens or 1 defense battery.
I see.
And the strike carriers can drop 1 infantry token or 1 armored token.
I see.
So that's how that works. Whereas the Shaltari, it's just 1 armored or 1 infantry.
Yeah.
So you don't get this 4 tokens all in one big lump. And they also can't drop defense batteries at all.
I see.
But the void gates, because they have charged air around them, a bit like the drop ships do, the Eden and the Gaia do in Drop Zone, they actually function as a defense battery by themselves.
I see.
A little bit weaker than a normal defense battery, but still pretty good, and you get that as a kind of side effect of having them.
Nice.
So you lack numbers with Shaltari, and you're going to be paying the points because the Emerald is quite an expensive ship.
Yeah, but I don't know. Having that tactical flexibility on the ground is a real advantage for some players, I would say.
It is, and also because those void gates are cheap. You want at least 3 void gates per mothership, because a mothership can drop up to 3.
Yeah.
And you really want 3 void gates, otherwise you're not going to get the best out of your models.
Okay, cool.
But you take more, and then you can, they don't know which one it's going to come out of. If you've got 5 void gates,
you can play a nice little shell game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Who's next in the lineup?
Yep. So next,
I know we do have more.
Yeah, that's all right. We got the UCM. This is the Avalon class, which is one we actually brought in during the Kickstarter because there's 2 UCM battlecruisers.
Right.
There's the Atlantis.
The
Atlantis you can only get as a high rank backer. That's it's a freebie for high. Well, it's included in the pledge for high rank backers. Yeah. And that's the only way you can get the Atlantis, and that's got lots of turrets and launch capacity as well. It's a good jack of all trades ship. I mean, it's got the same punch as a heavy cruiser with launch capacity. Yeah. So it's a nice ship. It's not cheap in game because it can do a lot. Yeah. But also we had a lot of demand mid Kickstarter for a UCM ship that you could get if you weren't a high rank backer.
I see.
Which is the Avalon, which is the second one.
So, okay. I see one thing on this to begin with that worries me. This weapon is a burn through laser, which is really, really, really scary. If we look at the actual schematic, you can see how huge
you see how much of the ship
is.
that takes up. That's like a good chunk of the ship is this one massive burn through laser at the front.
Yeah.
Which is potent. This is more of a direct ship killer. It doesn't have any launch capacity, but it's got double the number of turrets at the back as well. So you've got more rear turrets, which are weaker lock value, but there's still lots of dice there, and the big fatty at the front.
Yeah, well, you see, the one that really scares me is, I think it's like this. I think it's the St. Petersburg, which actually has
two burn throughs. Yeah. They're smaller though. This is equivalent of the St. Petersburg.
Oh, I see.
2 burn throughs together in one.
I see.
But the key thing here is that this is one profile. So you can use that on standard orders, because you can only fire one weapon on standard orders. But if that weapon is nasty like that, it does have a rule though that you gain a spike for using it, because it's a really big gun, and really big guns cause big signatures. So that's the downside. But it's more aggressive than the Atlantis, more kind of punchy.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how some of the tactics go for this, because it seems like every ship you're building for this game is a tool for a job.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be fun to see people learning, what tool do I need for this job? Have I brought that tool with me today?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting actually to see how the meta develops as well, because you never quite know what people are going to, you know, I don't know the exact optimum loadout yet. Players will work it out.
See, this is fun. You get to discover that with everybody.
Yeah, because I mean, we've done a lot of playtesting, and we think we know what the optimum loadout is, but we're never quite right when you've got, you know, 6 of us in the office playing a game versus thousands of people out there playing the game. The thousands of people will be right in the end. You know, that's just... And the next one?
Yes, the faction that I love the most is the Scourge.
This is the Basilisk.
Oh, hello, sweetheart. I've been waiting to get my hands on one of these since I saw it turn up on the Kickstarter. It is gorgeous.
Yeah, the Basilisk is... this is an interesting one as far as the battlecruisers go. This has got a cloak on there.
Okay.
There's 2 types of cloak in the game. There's basically partial cloak, full cloak. This is full cloak.
Okay.
Full cloak means that you basically you can only get you can never get any spikes
at all
ever.
So this thing is running around in the shadows the whole game.
Yep, unless you're crippled. If the ship's crippled, so it's lost more than half its hull points, the effect disappears, because you can't cloak something that's bleeding heat and fire everywhere.
I'm fine with that. I'm invisible. You actually have to get to me to make me crippled?
You've still got the ship's signature is still there, unless you're on silent running, in which case that disappears as well. Yeah, and then you're left with literally your scan range, which is only going to be like 9 inches.
Yeah, well, I mean, like for anyone who actually hasn't looked at this before, we have a video series that Warren did for the Kickstarter. Yeah. We actually go through some of these mechanics. What Dave's talking about now is, depending on how you run your ship, you actually have a signature, and then you have your weapon ranges. So imagine it like 2 bubbles expanding and contracting as you play the game. If those 2 bubbles meet and intersect, you can target each other and shoot each other. Yeah. With this not getting spikes, I see that as a major, major advantage.
Yeah, it is, because you've got your scan range, which is typically 6 to 12 inches.
Okay.
More advanced races will have a bigger scan range.
Yeah.
Then you've got signature. Generally, the bigger ships have bigger signatures. You know, a battleship will have a signature of like 16 or 12 or something, and a little frigate will only have a signature of 2.
Yeah.
So to get your range, you add those 2 together. But then you also add spikes. And there's only 2 types of spike. There's a minor spike and a major spike.
Yeah.
Minor spike adds 6 inches of range. Major spike adds 12.
Exactly.
You can't have multiple spikes. You can't have 2 major spikes. You know, you've just got a major spike, and that's as much as you can have. But
I don't know. I think that makes this a really, really good alpha strike.
It does. It also means normally there's an order called weapons free, which lets you fire all your weapons.
Yeah.
And bigger ships like battlecruisers, battleships want to be doing that a lot, because they've got like 4 or 5 weapon profiles, and you want to
being able to ignore those spikes.
Yeah.
Normally, weapons free all the time.
Normally weapons free gives you a major spike for doing it. So hello, here I am, but this one, no.
No, it's just from the shadows I strike.
The downside is it's slightly undergunned compared to the other battlecruisers.
You
don't get everything, you know, there's the downside, and that's the downside.
From what we're seeing here, what is on this ship at the minute? So what weapons do we have?
So you've got Oculus weapons, which are basically standard Scourge guns. They're beam weapons. They come from all the eyes, literally. The eyes are eye beams. They're Oculus weapons. So a lot of dice, reasonably flexible, high lock value. They're lock free, which is good. You know, it means you bypass armor on a 5 or a 6, which is always good to have.
Yeah.
They're also damage 2. Most weapons are damage 1. Damage 2 means you do double damage when you hit.
Lovely.
They have Scald as well, which means the enemy's armor gets 1 worse when you get within your scan range, which is doubly potent. So they're very, very, very nasty weapons up close, and it's got a lot of those. That's basically it. It's got a lot of standard guns, but that's
standard guns. But being able to hide and not worry about exposing myself.
Oh yeah,
I can live with this.
Yeah, I mean it's brilliant at hunting down anything small that's flanking. You know, it's brilliant at that. If you want to kill stuff on the flanks, you send one of these, just like a real battlecruiser. It's for picking off weaker opposition that are isolated.
Well, I mean, it's also something I love about this is the design aesthetic, because seeing your battle cruisers, if I bring one of our standard little cruisers,
that's a light cruiser actually. That one there.
Right. Which one am I aiming for?
Yeah, that's an Ifrit standard cruiser.
So if we have a standard cruiser, it's very easy to quickly see who the big chief is whenever you're looking at them.
Yeah.
And it really makes them stand out, because I can imagine John facing off against me going, okay, I know that's your battle cruiser. That thing scares me. I'm going to stay away from that. Or he's going to go, okay, that's your battle cruiser. You're going to die. I am going to go after you. At which point he may overextend and actually leave himself open.
This is where it's worth mentioning as well. All these battlecruisers we're showing off here, these are all Kickstarter exclusive ones. Yeah.
So again, if you're getting in on that Pledge Manager,
these are models you won't be able to get again after the 21st.
Aha.
And also these are basically half plastic, half resin. So they use the standard cruiser parts with some resin conversion parts to create the battlecruisers.
Yeah.
The retail battlecruisers will be resin and there'll be new sculpts, but you won't see those for a while yet. So these are,
this is letting you get the jump on your mates and play something nasty to force them to really work against you. So next up, who do we have?
This is the Leonidas, and this is the back end of the Leonidas, which is the PHR battlecruiser, which is the biggest of all of the battlecruisers.
Oh,
the Leonidas is a monster.
Am I seeing a double battery on the side of this thing?
You are, yeah. You're seeing a really potent broadside. It's essentially, again, most of the battlecruisers are about 2 cruisers worth of firepower.
Yeah.
This has no front weapons whatsoever, but has a really nasty double broadside, which is well potent.
Yeah. So basically, get this thing in and get it basically shooting.
It's very PHR. It's unsubtle. You charge in. If you can position yourself well, you're going to do a lot of damage. This is much more of a bruiser than the other battlecruisers are. You'd expect this to get stuck in the middle of things a lot more. That's where it will be best used.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like comparing it to, I assume this would be its equivalent just as a cruiser?
That's a basic cruiser, yeah.
All right, so basic cruiser compared, you can really see it is really outgunned.
It is, yeah.
And the engine pods on it look as if, I'm carrying a lot more extra weight. I need a lot more pushing power right here.
Yeah, it's a little slower than a cruiser, but not much, and faster than the battleship, which is always the PHR battleship is going to be the slowest ship in the game.
Yeah, but that's what we've come to expect from the PHR. Yeah. They're that little bit slower, but they really pack a punch. Once they
expect
get there.
them to bring the pain and also take the pain as well, which is
of course
a PHR kind of thing. So yeah,
beautiful.
Those are all the battlecruisers.
Yeah. No, actually, we have one thing here that hasn't really been shown off too much yet. And I think that's the cruisers for the PHR, yeah.
Oh yeah, and the frigates actually. The frigates are the one thing.
The frigates, sorry, that's what
we haven't sent out any images for these yet.
All right, so get a load of these. They are.
Let me see. Are we all here? Gorgeous. We should be 5 of those.
That's 4.
That's 4. Oh, there we go. That's the last one.
So if you want to quickly run me through what each one is. So who's this one? Dude?
So that one's Perseus. I may actually. It's not. You know what? I might get 1 or 2 class names wrong.
That's okay.
I'll just say what they do. It's probably easier because then you'll remember them by what they do. This one is guns, standard frigate. This is your normal PHR frigate. It's got 2 little broadsides.
Yeah.
Technically double the firepower of any other frigate in the game because you've got 2 broadsides and you're not really paying many more points for it because
but these are really maneuverable, I'm guessing.
They're pretty maneuverable, yeah. I mean, again, they're less maneuverable perhaps than the other frigates, but they are still pretty quick and they're handy.
Okay.
Then you've got the
well, who's this dude?
That one is a escort carrier, which is the only escort carrier in the game.
Okay.
At the moment, which is a frigate level ship with launch capacity.
Ah.
So this launch fighters and bombers. So fighters and bombers are launched by carriers, fleet carriers, and troop ships and strike carriers launch ground things. There's a important distinction there. It only has a launch capacity of 1, but you have a squadron of 4 of them, so they're you know.
So basically, I'm dropping out 4 sets of bombers to go after something.
Really, really good at hitting stuff right at the back of the board because these are fast. So unlike the other fleet carriers, you can get forwards quicker because they're a smaller body, and then bombers have more range. Bombers and fighters will generally hit stuff further away.
Yeah, and the other thing is, with these being frigates, they'll have that smaller signature, so it's going to be harder.
It's going to be hard to get
at them.
Hard to remove them. Yeah, then you've got this is the only frigate in the game with a burn-free weapon at the front. Very, very pointy.
Yeah.
It's not as powerful as the UCM cruisers burn through, of course, but it's
still a burn through.
It's still a burn through, and you've got a squadron of 4 of them. You're going to be dishing out reliable damage. Yeah. Another change we've made to burn through, actually, which is worth mentioning at this point.
Well, is for people who don't know what burn through is, because we are assuming they know what it is.
Yeah. So burn through we've made a few changes to burn through actually, so it's a little different than how it was on the videos.
Yeah.
You get to re-roll dice when you do damage.
Okay.
And also, if you beat the armor and you get through the armor, subsequent re-rolls are also past the armor.
Yeah.
Which is nice. We've capped the level of damage they can do now. So every burn through has, say, burn through 3. This one has burn through 3, which is not marvelous. So you can do a maximum of 3 damage points by using it. So you can't just get
12.
lucky and just keep rolling forever and kill off a battleship with amazing rolling.
If I have a squadron of 4 of those, that's still a possible 12 damage to throw into something like a cruiser.
Yeah.
Or even maybe a launch asset at the back of my opponent's board.
Yeah. You can hurt people with burn through, but the other thing it does is it's got bloom, which is a rule that puts spikes on the ship you've hit. So it paints the target. Basically, it's a hot weapon, so it's going to hit and it's going to cause heat on the target.
Okay, that's going to make for some very interesting tactical
situations. So it has
imagine.
A different... Because one thing we were coming up against a lot was it was a fun way of rolling dice to do damage, but it was just another way of rolling dice to do damage, whereas now there's a specific purpose to burn through.
It
beyond
feels like a scout now.
Yeah. It's also... Burn throughs are great at hitting things with good armor values because once you're past the armor, you're getting consistently past the armor.
Yeah, but if I'm lighting something up and say my big battlecruiser is right at the back, suddenly, oh look, you've got a spike on you. You're in range. Fire!
And that's particularly nice on a frigate body because it's fast, so you can get in early and you can ping them with damage effectively, which is quite nice.
And you can really help your PHR get into that range early, which is what they need.
And then you've got Calypso, which is a this is a ECM frigate. This has no guns.
Okay.
But if you park it next to one of your big ships, once per turn with an enemy weapon, you can reduce the lock value by 1, which doesn't sound spectacular, but it is when it comes to protecting your other ships.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, whenever you're rolling, say, tons of dice at each other, say it's got a bit close.
It's a big weapon system, 4 dice on lock 3 or something, which is a potent, nasty weapon.
Yeah.
That suddenly becomes 4 dice on lock 4. Yeah. So you now need 6s to bypass the armor instead of 5s or 6s.
Yeah.
And obviously 4s to damage instead of 3s. You get saves otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's quite a strong effect. And if you've got a few of these around, it doesn't matter how far the enemy is away from you. You've got to be close to the ship you're trying to protect.
Yeah.
But it's handy. It's not enormously expensive. Useful to take with battleships, especially.
It's a nice little buff unit. This is our bard.
Yeah. This is a helper. And then you've got the PHR strike carrier. This drops dropships, equivalent to the New Orleans for the UCM.
Yeah.
A little different from the other strike carriers, and it's got a little orbital bombardment cannon underneath. Just a little twin gun under there that does OB, which is it's the only strike carrier that can do OB.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah, it's nice. The idea is the PHR are generally outnumbered most of the time, so their troop ships, which we don't have here, the PHR troop ships are all heavy troop ships, effectively, so they've got decent guns and troop ship capacity, and they've got a bit more hull, because PHR are not a very numerous race. They don't, they protect their lives. So if you can use the strike carrier to assist ground forces directly.
I like the idea of being able to soften up a target location before I send my troops in.
Yeah.
It's something, it's nice and cinematic, but it's also very, very good tactically.
Yeah, it's nice to have, and it's a thing unique to the PHR. A lot of the frigates in all the factions actually carry certain things that the other factions can't do, and the frigates are very useful support ships for all sorts of purposes.
Yeah, but it really gives flavour to the factions, which I'm really, really loving. Right. What's next?
There's a last couple of Kickstarter exclusives to show you.
Ah, yes. So we have this.
There's the Princess class liner, which was a freebie to all backers. So all backers on the Kickstarter get one of these anyway, but you can add extra ones if you want.
Yeah.
And that won't be available again after that. It's a civilian ship. We'll be including a scenario to use in the backer brochure.
Nice.
Every backer will get a brochure which has got instructions to build all your freebies and scenarios for using certain things like that.
No, I like the idea that you're getting some exclusive scenarios in there as well, because it's just that little something nice that's extra for your backers.
Yeah, and it's a nice little ship. Actually, that's one I didn't design that. Patrice designed that. I sculpted it, but Patrice designed it as a sketch. Yeah, it was nice for him because he gave me I want a cool sci-fi civilian liner. And he went off, did it, and then I'd CAD'd it, and he's it's awesome to see it in 3D.
Yeah, it's got a very decadent feel to it. That high society, high technology society.
Yeah, that's
we can make an amazing, beautiful ship. Look at it.
Yeah,
amazing.
Look, it's slightly smaller than a cruiser, but it's quite a big model.
Yeah,
but you can add more of those if you want more of them, or if if you're late backer, you can add them. I think it's only a tenner or something, so it's not
bad.
Not an expensive ship really.
Yeah.
There's a few other bits. There's like Kickstarter exclusive T-shirts and other things to watch out for on there as well.
You've got your swag covered.
Yeah, you've got your swag covered. It's more or less a shout out just to say, if you want to pick up any of these things, you've got until the 21st of March to do it.
Yeah.
And existing backers can add more as well to their pledges if they want to. There's a few things they didn't get during the Kickstarter, and especially for stuff like this, which we get onto.
Yeah,
stuff that we didn't have models to show you during the Kickstarter, but we do now.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Right, the space station pack. This came from the success of the Kickstarter. This was the one thing that we really weren't planning on doing that we added. Yeah. One thing I was really against doing too many of these new things because mostly we did what we were planning to do.
Yeah.
Because we didn't want to
give it really, really well.
We didn't want to give ourselves more work than we were going to.
You didn't want to build Mount Everest and then go, crap, how do I climb this?
Yeah, because it would have been really easy for us to just add listings for things that we weren't, let's do this, let's do a scenery pack for this, let's do this,
You see, that's very good, and it's clever as well, because it keeps things within the realms of possibility while still giving everyone a really good game that they know they're going to get at the end up.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. But this one was something I always wanted to do, and we were always going to do this for Dropfleet, but perhaps not at launch. But now we can do it for launch, which is the modular space station pack. So during the Kickstarter, the only thing we had to show people were sketches, because literally it was about halfway through the Kickstarter. We were like, look, we can afford to do this now, so let's do it.
Yeah, let's see what we can come up with.
And then I got Patrice to go away and do some sketches. The idea was it was going to be a modular pack, so you could build all sorts of space stations from a multi-part plastic kit.
Yeah. Well, you see, that really makes sense for the universe. Because the UCM is so utilitarian, everything sort of bolts and sockets together.
Yeah, it's that, and I mean, you can use these for any faction PHR. You can paint them PHR colours and they'll look PHR, or you can you have them pre-war, so like Resistance age, which is most of them will actually be that old because you're trying to recapture planets from the Scourge. So mostly they'll be old space stations. But now we actually have some models to show you.
Oh, hello, sweetheart! This is beautiful.
So this is just an example of what you can build with the kit. So the kit is 30 quid on Kickstarter, and you get 4 sprues.
Right, so this is all built from one pack.
This is one pack, yeah.
Okay.
So I haven't actually got a ship to put next to these, but the one in the middle is about cruiser size.
Okay.
To give you an idea of how big they are.
Yeah, so they are going to take up a nice chunk of real estate.
They're a nice
once
chunk
they're on the board.
Nice chunk of building. These are I did a digital assembly of these. I just got all the bits in a big pile and assembled them. I'll show you a few close-ups of some of the bits. This is the big one in the middle. So
wow, seeing all the weapons on this.
Oh yeah, I mean this one you've got turrets, you've got heat sinks down there, you've got big turrets, missile turrets for close action weapons. You can. Lovely. But the important thing to stress here is you can do more or less anything you want when it comes to space. I mean, you can build these up. You could build a really tall space station. You could go outwards, sideways. You could go. You could even go sideways. Actually, there's one we don't have a close up of, but if I point to one on the screen, this little one down here might look quite innocuous.
On the left,
there's a little mount that lets you turn everything by 90 degrees, so you can go out sideways as well if you want.
Nice.
So
very nice.
I designed it to be as flexible and as varied as possible, so you can really just let your imagination go off and just make space stations.
Nice. Very
you know,
nice.
you've got here's the bits.
Okay, you're getting tons in this.
Yeah, you get a lot of bits. This is just a kind of quick screen grab from my assembly process because I start off with all the bits to build my examples. You've got main sections which go together a bit like a model railway track.
Yeah.
So you can go round,
So
you can
build
you know,
circles, twists, turns.
Yeah. That's to build like your superstructure, and then you've got hubs which are here. Hubs have a hole that goes all the way through them,
right? And
then you've got double mounts there that join onto the hubs. So you can put a widget on the bottom where you mount your flight stand, because it's a flight stand sized hole. Or you can put joiners in and join hubs together.
Nice.
So there's even canted ones like this, so you can have a hub that's offset if you want. So you can step them in one direction if you want to do that.
And then you've got different connectors.
You've got like big turrets that, like those there, like big burn through turrets there, or normal turrets that goes onto these big flight stand sized mount
I think this will make for some very interesting scenarios.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got little bits, like little turrets, little rockets and things that it can be dropped on. You know, there's a lot of parts in here. If you want to build them quick, you can ignore a lot of the small parts and just use the big bits. If you want to, you know, make the important thing as well.
Well, you can do this one of two ways. You can either make a nice derelict station which maybe has research on it that you're trying to get in and grab.
Yeah.
Or you can make it a freshly reactivated system where you know the UCM has moved in, they've loaded in all the weapons they could. They want to defend this, you know, space lane or supply depot or whatever. And
the Scourge are kind of like caddisflies as well, so they move in and use what already exists, like cuckoos. So the Scourge won't necessarily deactivate all the guns. You know, they'll use them, they exist, so why not use them?
Yeah.
So you can have Scourge. There's actually a resin bolt-on pack for this that has Scourgified bits that you can get. That's another bit you can get on there. But also what you can do, if you want, is you can go crazy. I did this for fun. I did this just to illustrate what you can do. This, I wouldn't really advise doing this, to be honest, for game use, but I used an entire pack to build one.
But it looks epic.
Yeah, I used an entire pack to build one mega space station.
Oh,
so this is the whole lot, all 4 sprues used to make one mega space station of doom. You know,
I need to show this to Warren.
You can do that if you like, and also if you really want to go bigger than that, you can, because you can just plug multiple sets together and you can just go. You know, I wanted to keep it as open and as flexible as possible, and
I have to show this to Warren. Is this to scale?
It is, yeah. It's to scale with the ship, so you can obviously dock cruisers onto it and frigates onto it and stuff. You know, you can do conversions. It's really open to a lot of converting, obviously.
Yes.
You know, this monstrosity was built in an afternoon as just like, right, let's just assemble a whole kit as one big fat space station.
Glorious.
There's a lot of space underneath there. You know, there's a lot going on underneath. I mean, this has got a lot of depth to it as well. This is about as big as, I don't know if you play 40k, it's about like Falcon Grav Tank kind of sized. It's quite a big model for much bigger than a battleship. It's
when you're considering, you know, the skills you're playing at in Dropfleet, you would have something this big.
Yeah, this is probably about a mile long, I think, end to end in true scale. Like, that's how big it would be.
I don't know about everybody else out there, but I would definitely want one of these on my board for the scenarios where, you know, it's an invasion of a major spaceport, you know, trying to hold down trade routes.
Yeah, and there will actually be missions where you can where certain space stations have atmospheric bubbles, so you can land dropships directly onto space stations to capture them with strike carriers.
Nice.
So that's going to be happening as well. That's part of some of the scenarios. This is just another big one that I built. Just this was when I was designing it. I was just plugging on all the bits I was designing, and not a huge amount of thought went into these assemblies. These were just like shove some bits together and see what comes out.
That's the cool thing. It's Wargamer Lego. And who
yeah,
doesn't love just being able to smack bits together and make something cool?
That's the idea. Yes, I grew up with construction kits, you know, Connects, Lego. Not really Meccano. I was never really a Meccano person, but those are the two I lived with.
Those are beautiful. You have done a really nice job on those.
Thank you.
Cannot wait to see them in the flesh.
And no one's seen these yet. We've got our actual minis for these are coming in a couple of days' time. So we might have some of those at the beta day to show people coming to that.
You have the one for your admirals coming up, don't you?
We do. That's this weekend.
Oh,
and that's going to be. We've got 69 people coming for a big mega playtest. We're actually having to build 69 fleets, resin fleets, because we don't have the plastics yet.
Right.
So we had to do a special production run just for this one day. so that everyone can have fleets to play with.
This feels like standard absolute.
Yeah, I mean it's big actually because it's slightly bigger than the biggest invasion tournament we've run for drop zones. So it's the biggest. That's cool. Biggest number of tables we've put out all in one go.
Important question: is that just for your UK backers at the minute?
It is, but there's also an EU one in Germany, and there's a US one in Portland, Oregon as well. The admirals will know about this already because they'd have got all the information they need for those.
I assume this is the moment. If your friend went admiral, get on your knees and beg to be as +1.
Yeah, because all the admirals get +1s. We've actually got really good attendance at all of them. The UK one, almost every single UK admiral's coming, and EU's very good. The States not so much because it's a big country, and Portland's right down one side. So I appreciate not every US admiral can make it because it's a long way to go just for one day. But you'll get beta rules anyway. It's an important part of this process that we're dealing with a manageable number of people with beta rules. We didn't want to send it out to like thousands of people and just be bombarded with a billion, an unmanageable amount of responses.
Whenever you're working with a smaller group for your beta testers, you can really filter out the useful data. Whereas if I have something like a video game where they have thousands upon thousands of guys doing this, sometimes you do just get a noisemaker in the crowd who's just screaming, "This is broken! Change this! This is broken! I can't beat my friend with this!" Yeah, that's not what you want. You want constructive feedback. Which smaller group, agreed.
It's a good group. It's effectively 200 people because it's the 100 admirals +1, or probably more than that because they'll get their mates playing in their clubs and stuff like that, and that's fine. And
that works perfectly.
We're asking them not to scan and post the rules online so everyone can moan about them. Yeah, they can moan to us if there are things they don't like, and we'll listen to them. That's the whole point. Yeah. The rules are now at a polished stage where we're happy to show them to people, and then we go from there. But they're going to be exciting events, and we've not done anything like that before, so that's pretty cool.
All right. What do we have next?
Next bits, we've got a few other bits on the Kickstarter that you might have missed, or things that we've had. Things that we've had miniatures of since the Kickstarter. So we didn't have physical models to show people during the Kickstarter, but we do now. So if you're the kind of person that wants to see real models like me, I do, which is as many real models as we can create as we can bring to the table as possible. But these little guys,
these are our ground assets, yeah.
Yeah, they're not. Ground assets are tanks and infantry. And things. These are clusters. That's the game term for them.
Wrong term.
That's all right. Clusters they represent key areas inside a city.
Cities, manufactories, military installations.
Yeah. So effectively, the way this works in game is you've got a cluster. Which is a group of these, actually. These are sectors. My bad. A cluster is a group of them, so it'll be a token, a template that's, like large blast template kind of size with a few holes in it. And then you put these in them. All right. And these this is the actual strategic locations within a city that you're trying to capture. The whole cluster is a city, and these are areas inside a city.
The districts of the city?
Yeah, cool. Effectively.
Right, well, actually,
these are also worth saying. These are in scale with the ships.
Okay, so bring me one of the little ones.
Let's have one of the New Orleans, for example.
I put a New Orleans right about here. I should be fit to get this quite well under close camera. And we then have our little bit of a city beside it. And it really does give you a sense of just what scale you're working at here. Even just holding that in my finger, this is about the size of a penny base.
Yeah, so we'll bring that one up on the screen. We'll see that in a minute.
So there's so much detail that you've worked into here.
Yeah, this the big skyscraper is obviously based on the Chrysler Building. I love Art Deco, and the Chrysler Building is one of the best. It's a bit shorter than the real Chrysler Building is about twice as tall as that, but the floor heights are correct. So they're actually in scale because I get really anal about this kind of thing. Yeah, but if you can make it in scale, why not make it in scale? Well, it's just lazy not to.
If I'm going to have a bare APC that's going to have to fit what? How many guys?
10 guys.
Right. You want
15 actually. My bad.
Right. Yeah. So you want 15 guys to be able to sit in that.
Yeah.
That's
I worked it all out when I've designed all the drop zone stuff as well. So it's all real scales that work.
Yeah. And
then there you go. There's
1 American cent.
1 American cent next to one. They're not tiny tokens. They're normal size as far as tokens go. You get a lot in the box. You get I think it's about 30 odd. Tokens you get in the box.
It's really showing that detail you've squeezed into such a tiny space. I am really impressed with that.
So I was getting these back was really. I love this kind of thing, and when you go, oh, that's so cool. Yeah. When you see it, I always love. It's one of my favourite parts of my job is when you see the physical models come back.
One of my favourite components is this. So our city one, your artists actually went and seen, because if you look here on the screen, you can see they've painted in a car park with 2 little cars and a road.
Yeah, this was something that our painters did.
Yeah.
Which I didn't actually. I wasn't cheeky enough to ask for them to actually paint road markings on. I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful paint job, and they look lovely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like all of the stuff looks absolutely beautiful. I mean, like the interesting thing for me is going to be seeing once pledges actually start to land with people, how they start to paint them. I mean, like myself and John have been talking back and forth about how we want to do the paint schemes on this. John having the UCM, me having the Scourge. I think I have the PHR, and John's getting the SHARRI, the way it broke down for our pledge. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to try and go something quite simple, quite quick, but I want it to be striking as well, because I think the Scourge deserves something monstrous like that.
Ink is your friend. Ink and dry brushing.
Yes. I couldn't highly recommend enough the army painter inks for something like that, just because they sit down really well.
Yeah, they just go down brilliantly. I mean, I've always said that the smaller the scale, the easier the model is to paint, because ink is so much more effective on.
It will hide a multitude of sins.
Or when you've got encrusted detail like most of these models have, ink will deal with most of your problems really quite quickly.
Yeah, well, so long as you're not too heavy with it, because you might just cake it and you've got a black spot.
Well, I say ink wash, really, not proper ink, because ink is quite dense and shiny. It has its use.
Even ink washes, I have screwed them up many times, because anytime I come to try and paint a white, my wash always goes down too heavy, and my white looks dirty instead of shaded. So it's just one little tip that I've learned
you can
recently.
dry brush back up on top of ink, which is something I always think works quite well if you've got some raised areas. You need to be a bit more careful with things like the PHR top hulls, because they're very deliberately really clean and totally smooth with no panel lines at all.
Yeah, you see, for that, what I would just be doing is nice flat clean colour. And you see that top ridge? Just a nice little, if we look here, along here you've got this nice high ridge, so nice edge highlighting along there.
Yeah, just a little
good,
sharp
clean colour here.
Edge highlight.
And just get good shading and stuff in around here. And that should really pop.
This one, being a studio job's got some very subtle shading done on it. It's hard to actually bring across in photography, but there's a lot of subtle depth that you see when you see the real model. It's a beautiful paint job. I'm really happy with what they've done with these.
Your sculpts are incredible. Your painters have done an incredible job. I'm just gobsmacked by it.
Thank you.
Especially on those little city pieces. They're beautiful.
Talking about little pieces, we'll bring in the last group of tiddly things, which is the launch assets. This is something we're always going to do these, but originally they were going to be white metal. They were going to be white metal, kind of expensive as a sort of, if you want the luxury version, you buy them. But because we did so well on the Kickstarter, we could do them in injection molded plastic from day one and make them cheap.
Well, we've got 3 types here, yeah?
Yep.
Okay, now they are quite short, so I'm gonna bring in my strike carrier again, just so that I can get my height sort of right to actually show these off. So what we have here?
Those bombers there. They're actually on different heights as well, so you can quite easily tell the difference between them. These are slightly overscale, so they're about 2 to 1 compared to everything else, because we wanted to make it so you could actually see the things, because the ones
like this at half the size, perfect call, I would say.
Yeah, it's kind of just crosses the threshold into being too tiny for their own good. So that's a different colour scheme on bombers.
Yeah,
they're not race specific because they're so tiny. You can just paint them up, in your fleet colours, and they'll look good. And importantly, you get a lot in the box too. And there you got fighters there.
Oh right, so I grabbed 2 bombers there. Whoops.
Yeah, they're both bombers. And then you got fighters.
Yeah, which
are
are
5 little fighters per stand.
And these are the things that I was pointing out, that you can actually see these in the hangar bays on the launch assets.
Yeah,
I think
or on the fleet carrier. Yeah, you can see them in there. There's been one small change since the Kickstarter runners. I've actually, in response to feedback, varied the heights of the flight stands on them a bit.
I see.
So there's a little bit of variance, just so they look a bit more,
as if they're, a little bit more as if they're in flight.
And they're in terms of assembly, they're dead easy because they're one piece, including the stand, and you just stick them and the stalk into the base. Now this here is a torpedo. Yes.
Scary.
So see that in comparison to the size of a frigate. Yeah. That is about 1 to 1 in the game. That's not overscaled. And a torpedo is deaf. It's deaf to a frigate instantly. There's very little chance of surviving.
Yeah,
it's gonna probably cripple a cruiser, or perhaps even almost destroy one outright. Whereas it won't kill a battleship by itself, but it's going to overcome.
It's going to take a fair chunk out of that armor plate.
In the fluff, point defense doesn't work against torpedoes because torpedoes are built specifically to overcome it by having 50-meter thick armor, you know, so literally, or like just thick, huge, solid armor. So it just punches through everything the enemy has to throw at it, and it punches inside the hull and kaboom.
Yeah.
You know, the SHARRI are the only faction that don't have any torpedoes.
Yeah.
But
well, I suppose I can kind of understand that from a fluff perspective, because, you know, SHARRI, I expect, you know, lots of energy weapons.
Yeah, lots of energy weapons. I mean, you get the imagery of torpedoes, the firing a spread of torpedoes is close action weapons, really, which are a lot smaller. You know, they're more like rockets, missiles, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Torpedoes are more of a breed unto their own, which is like this big monstrous thing. Yeah. You're probably only going to have 2 or 3 ships in your fleet that'll even have them.
I can live with that.
Yeah, they usually be limited.
They're going to be fired at me. I can live with that.
You usually only get to fire it once, or perhaps twice per game on these ships. So they're not something you're going to see all the time, but they're super weapons.
They're an asset that you really have to be careful of where and when you spend it.
Yeah, so this is the quantity you get. So you get 6 bases of fighters, 10 of bombers, and 2 torpedoes in the box. Is what you get, and they're I think it's tenner for the whole lot. So
that's not bad.
Yeah, and that's what you need for a tournament-sized game. That's enough, unless you're going to go really big and take like 3 fleet carriers. You know, that's sufficient for most tournament-sized games.
No, that's very, very cool. So, do we have anything left over to talk about?
We have one more thing, which is the new bases.
All right, so I have them here.
So we had
here we go.
Mark II.
All right,
which is these ones
Mark
here.
II?
Yep. So Mark I were the ones that were shown off in the previous Beast of War videos that we did.
Yeah.
Those bases, we got a whole batch of them printed for the Beast of War trip that Simon did, actually. He came down for it.
Right.
As soon as we got the prints in hand, straight away we were like, no, these are no good. They've got a lot of problems, but we had to use them for the Beast of War video.
I think, even as they are, they worked quite well for what we were doing, because
they were okay.
Game's still in development. You know,
it was early
these things
stage.
are going to evolve.
So we had a lot of comments about usability, but we'd already known that by that point. And the Kickstarter, the ones we showed on the Kickstarter were Mark II, which are these ones here.
Yeah, so that's what we've got here, and what you actually had on the Kickstarter, which is this, showing the different sizes. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's only 2. There's medium and small. Large ones will actually be resin bases that will come with battleships, but you don't need to worry about those yet because they're not. And this is what the base does.
So
I'll show you Mark III in a minute, but Mark III, it works in the same way. It's just a few minor changes. So the base is a really important element in Dropfleet because it basically eliminates the need for tokens for most of what you do.
Basically, I'm not pushing piles of kits behind
the ship. So you've got on the base, you've got fire arcs, which are these here. Then you've got front narrow, which is the grey one at the front. Then you've got a space at the back for the ship name, which will face the player rather than face the opponent. Which is more or less a thing for your own use, you know, for record keeping if you want to keep track of stuff off the board, or, you know. Then you've got damage marker, which is controlled by a peg that you put in there, which tracks damage. You can also, we've had a lot of comments about losing the pegs, and you're right, you will lose some, but we're giving you 4 pegs for every single flight stand you get. So
so basically just get a little Ziploc bag.
Yeah, just
put it in with your gaming
you're going to get more pegs than you're ever going to lose, probably. You know, and you can also do stuff like, if you wanted to, you could paint the top of half your pegs red. So if the ship's crippled, you put a red peg in instead to show it's crippled.
No, that's clever.
You know, that's a choice. If players want to do it, they can do it.
I would go for that. I would definitely go for that.
I think it's a cool thing to do. Or you could do battle group identification with pegs. So you could color code them so you know what battle group all your ships are in, which is another thing you could do. It's a player choice, ultimately. Then you've got the most important aspect, which is the rotating wheel, which keeps track of 2 things. It keeps track of your orbital height, which is either high orbit, which is just black, low orbit, which is black and white stripy, or atmosphere, which is pure white.
So if you're in anything that's not allowed to go into the atmosphere,
you die instantly. Yeah, but it's worth mentioning actually that almost every ship only goes in high or low orbit. All the capital ships will all die if they go into atmosphere. They just burn up. They're not made for it.
But if you take the correct damage, you can start to drop orbital.
Yeah, you get orbital decay. Yeah, so it's worth being careful with battleships, not putting them down in low orbit unless
you're really pushing for something.
Yeah. There are reasons why you need to, like orbital bombardment has to be done from low orbit. Mother troop ships have to drop bulk landers from low orbit. So there are reasons you've got to go down there, and you're harder to hit from high orbit if you're in low orbit. So if you want to hide, it's not bad. But if you do get engine failures and orbital decay, then if you fail to repair that, you burn up and you die. So be scared.
The other side, high orbit, you've at least got a little bit of a chance to repair that.
Yeah. The other side of the indicator is the spike indicator, which shows major spike, minor spike, silent running, and nothing. Silent running, you can't have a spike and silent running at the same time. So you never need to show both at once. If you gain a spike for some reason, and you have to knock the player off silent running, and then you can start putting spikes on them. So you can see them you can see these indicators from a long way away because they're color coded, and it's pretty simple to see it from the other side of the board.
And the actual way that even the Mark IIs, the way you've designed them, if I put it under close camera, you can really see that you've got this little bit of a wedge shape to it.
Yes.
Which actually means that even if you're looking at it from an angle, you're still going to get a good eye's view down into that.
Yeah, because there's enough depth in the cast to fit the peg into, which is where we made some improvements with Mark III.
All right, shall we?
And also use, So here's Mark III. No one's seen these yet.
Okay.
On the surface of things, they look quite similar. But Mark III, this is the medium-sized one, now has a texture on here, so it makes it easier to turn. Because what you want to be doing is you don't want to be touching the model itself when you're messing with these things. So on the table itself,
if I actually put this down,
you'd just be, you'd hold the base and you turn,
So basically, wedge it with 2 fingers and just gently twist it to where you need to be. So there I've went silent running, and I'm in low orbit,
Yeah, that's the one.
It's really easy to read these.
Yeah, it's easy to read from a distance and easy to change without moving the ship or without having to touch the model itself, because you have this awkward thing when you're trying to hold the model, and you don't need to do that. You just hold the bezel on the outside of the base is really thick, so you've got easy enough space to put your fingers. And then you've got the small Mark III, which is now has a bit of extra depth for the pegs.
I see.
Because it was a little design consideration that the big one.
Yeah, you've got the space to put those little ridges on, whereas this, you don't really have that same amount of space. So this, it'll let you get your fingers onto it and get.
Because also the hole for the peg had to block off at the bottom because the peg holes are in the same line as the colours. So you don't want to see colours through a hole that goes all the way through. Whereas on the bigger one, it does go all the way through because it's only black underneath. So it's just a little design thing, but it functions as a grip as well for turning.
Yeah, it works really, really well. I'm impressed with the way you've went with this, and it's nice to see that, you're not just going, okay, we've got the Gen 2, that'll work. You're going, I'm not happy with this. Let's go back to the drawing board again. Yeah,
because we brought the Mark IIs to Invasion this year, and we've been showing them to our own little playtest groups as well. And the more people handle these things and go, I don't really like that, or I do, and you can make little changes to things. But we're now, Mark III is where we're going, and we're really happy with these. So these are all being tooled right now. So these are the final versions. These are 3D prints, which is why you've got all the weird texture on the video that you might have noticed. But
see, I like the fact that you're able to do your rapid prototyping like that. It means that you're not sitting around waiting for someone maybe in a different town, different country to actually make you up your prototypes and mail them to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's no substitute for actually making things for real, which is, this was a good old kind of build a better mousetrap kind of bit of design. Because I did a degree in product design, that's my background. So this was good old product design, just, make a prototype, test it, show it to people, make another prototype, test it, show it to people. So we're really happy with these, and it means really the only tokens you need now are special status things like fires, and you'll only have 1 or 2 of those, and engine failures, again, 1 or 2 engine failure tokens, and really that's about it.
Oh, you see, even with those extra pegs, what you could actually do is, put your status effects as a colour on top.
Yeah, again, if you wanted to do that, you could do that. You do, red peg for being on fire, or, green peg for, you've got choice, and
so there are ways and means.
We wanted to leave some of this up to the players, and you've got loads of spare pegs, so you can design, you could paint them how you like, and it makes things very easy.
Well, really. Dave, this is incredibly impressive. I am gobsmacked. I cannot wait to get my hands on my set of this. So I'm going to say goodbye to everybody at home. I'm going to say goodbye to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Guys, drop us a comment below. Are you getting excited as I am for Dropfleet? We'll see you in the next video.
Cheers.